So I want to pull this next story up, um, talking about Lowkey in Israel. The Israel lobby is trying to cancel Lowkey, and there are other rappers and celebrities that are standing in solidarity with Lowkey. Um, so, as detailed by Minpress last week, because of his tireless advocacy for Palestinian liberation, the messages that he puts in his songs, Lowkey has been the subject of a long-time surveillance and harassment campaign by pro-Israel groups, NGOs, and media outlets, some of whom are directly funded and staffed by the Israeli embassy. In recent weeks, the attacks have increased with appearances at Cambridge University, and the National Union of Students postponed or canceled due to pressure. And he does have his own podcast called The Watchdog for Mint Press News. But again, shout out to Jack Sitz, who's here with us. He sent me this clip that I'm about to play of Lowkey on CNN. But before that, I also want to mention that Spotify, just like how they were trying to cancel Joe Rogan, they're also trying to cancel Lowkey's music. So let me play this clip. I know, right? I know, right? So here's a clip of Lowkey's appearance on CNN.
It's Eurovision at the top of this hour, and now I want to take you to what you could call the anti-Eurovision. That's right. In response to the song competition's controversial setting of Israel this year, pro-Palestinian activists held a counter-performance dubbed Global Vision that was streamed from cities across the world. That's one of the performers, British Iraqi rapper Lowkey, joining me now from London. Sir, why?
Hi, Becky. How are you doing? Firstly, we actually were streaming to 35,000 people worldwide. Now, that's more than the tickets that were actually sold for the Eurovision. And in the words of the head of the Israeli broadcasting services, Israel has been the first country in 64-year history of the Eurovision that was not able to fund it itself. It relied on the broadcasting services to do it. We know that there was not a spike in tourism, and we know that also the Eurovision village itself was on the remains of a Menshia, a Palestinian village of Jaffa that was deleted from existence in the Nakba of 1948. So we saw that Israel is in a situation where it violates more UN resolutions and more international law than any other country, but yet seems sanction-proof. So for that reason, upon inspiration from the BDS campaign in South Africa, upon the advice of former US President Jimmy Carter, who defines Israel as an apartheid state, of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Nobel Peace Prize winner, the boycott and divestment sanctions is a sound, non-violent form of resistance.
Lowkey, your job was sort of done for you by Madonna, was it not, last night, and by the band representing Iceland. I mean, Eurovision say this isn't about politics, but it was last night.
Well, we would have preferred that Madonna didn't cross the picket line. But in fact, the fact that she had to have a Palestinian flag on stage is a testament to the success of our campaign, and also is a testament to the fact that Israel cannot leave 12.5 million people worldwide, which is the Palestinian worldwide population, in a state of hauntology, in a state of constant anticipation for more just futures. Also, the fact that the Icelandic team felt the need to show the Palestinian flag as well. Again, we would have preferred they did not cross the picket line, and these aesthetic gestures are limited, but at the same time, I would say they bear testament to our success.
Let's talk about the politics for the region. We are promised the details of a peace plan from the US President's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. We don't have the details as of yet. There are those who say this plan will simply maneuver out the Palestinians effectively, and that the many countries from the region that we are in an access with the US and Israel are sort of forging ahead at whatever, leaving the Palestinians behind. What's your sense?
Well, paragraph 6, article 49 of the Geneva Conventions outlaws the moving of citizens of an occupying power from inside that power to the state it occupies. Israel has built up across the peace process illegal settlers in the West Bank that number almost 600,000 people. They have access to over 70% of the clean water in the West Bank. We have seen the peace process as a subterfuge for the continued colonization of Palestinian land and ethnic cleansing of Palestinian people from their homeland. If you look at the law even within Israel, yes, there are 1.5 million Palestinians who have Israeli citizenship that have the right to participate in elections, as do, I might remind you, the illegal settlers in the West Bank, by the way. However, those people, those Palestinians within Israel, what they have is Israeli citizenship. They don't have nationality. Their nationality is defined as Arab. There is a Jewish nationality, there is a Russian nationality, there is a Syrian nationality. Legal rights group Adala have identified over 50 laws within Israel that enshrine inequality between Jews and Arabs. Now, Ehud Barak said it clearly, Israel can either be non-democratic or it can be, it's either racism or democracy. And that's a clear choice for us. It's not a difference between Jews and Palestinians. It's a difference between those that believe in the equality of all and those that believe in the supremacy of some.
Lowkey, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Your live streams, Haifa, Bethlehem, Dublin, as well as London last night, your views will be considered by some extremely controversial. They are your views. Good to have you on the show.
I disagree.
Thank you. Well, there's a lot going on this hour.
Your views?
There are just your views? Yeah.
They are.
Kicked them out.
Your views?
She was like, this is supposed to be a rapper. This dude knows shit.
Oh, yeah. She didn't like that, at all. Gotta say a shout out to my boy.
He schooled her.
Captain Ballard Lawson. What's up, Chris? But
what up, Chris?
I want to say...
what up, Chris?
I don't know if you guys have seen what I put... what I tweeted out on my Hebrew Apologetics Twitter. It's going to be interesting tomorrow. That's what I'll say.
Okay.
And I'm talking about in Israel.
Well,
I don't know if you've been following what's going on about the Temple Mount and things like that, but it's going to be interesting.
I've been following that for quite some time, and that is a very scary thought.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that don't know, out there in the Al-Aqsa Mosque is built upon the rock. The Jews call this the Temple Mount, and they have been chomping at the fucking bit to nuke Al-Aqsa Mosque and rebuild the temple. So, only time will tell how long that takes. But Jack actually showed me a debate in Oxford Union, I want to say.
Yeah.
And fucking Lowkey just burns the fucking place down. Like,
jeez,
it's fucking incredible, dude. Because like, he's counterpoint, right? He's not thesis, he's antithesis or something like that. And so he gets introduced and people are clapping. He's like, all right, stop all that. We have limited amount of time here. And then he just starts fucking listing all the shit down, like fucking, and barely makes his time and nails every fucking thing to the wall. It was beautiful. Dude's incredibly intelligent, and that's why they want him silenced, right? They would much prefer the Palestinian activists to be the fucking blue-haired dumb shits that are just like fucking wearing fucking Soviet Union Ushankas and shit, like, so that they can point and laugh. But
yeah,
where Lowkey's coming from is personal.
When he speaks, you take him seriously.
Yeah,
he knows his stuff.
And I highly recommend everyone check out his songs. Just his style, like what he talks about. A great track everyone can go find on YouTube right now, Death of Neoliberalism. It opens up with Malcolm X speech. I believe it's Ballad of the Bullet, and he opens with that, pays tribute to Ali, a bunch of other people, and it's just a beautiful, uplifting song. He talks about like what's going on right now, same shit, and he has no issues calling out like BAE, all these British arms manufacturers. So, "Get Your Gun" is another song by him that features Assange as well.
Nice.
You sure that's not an Eminem song? No, I'm just playing.
I thought it was a Marilyn Manson song, actually, but you know.
I may have gotten the wrong. It's something. Or "Keep Your Hand on Your Gun." Sorry, you guys. Yeah, it's. Yeah, you're right. That is a Manson song. I got him confused.
Yeah, Eminem has one. He's like, "I'm going to get my gun."
I'm gonna get my
The
gun.
Lowkey one is where he's literally going and showing you depleted uranium victims at the end because he wants to hammer home to you what these weapons of war does. He does breakdown schematic maps throughout the video, showing the weapon system, showing the cluster munitions, showing the death and destruction, and he's unapologetic about it and fearless, man.
That's how we should all be when it comes to
He really helped wake me up on so many levels because I thought I was gaslighting myself on the situation a lot of times because when you've lived your whole life with an assumed Jewish identity like me, right, you tend to hyper focus on things, and even when you think you understand a situation, you really, what helped me is his perspective really showed me not only was the stuff there, it helped get rid of the cognitive dissonance. It helped me realize that it's not really my identity with that. It's I identify with everyone. I identify like not so much as that anymore because he's really kind of shown me, you know, there's a danger in doing that. There's a danger in doing those kind of things. If you put too much into that, and also the fact that everything he talks about is completely backed up and sourced.
Well, it kind of reminds me even a little bit. I don't know if you guys remember the Jon Stewart thing and how he was going into supposed stereotypes of the people who made Harry Potter, the movie Harry Potter, not the book, not J.K. Rowling, but the movie, and he's talking about all these Jewish stereotypes which he's seeing in there, and I'm like, you do realize a large portion of the country doesn't even know some of these stereotypes that you're throwing out there, and it's almost a projection that he is kind of doing almost in a way where, okay, granted, it may be in the area where you grew up, maybe that was common, but everybody doesn't know that. I mean, think about what the Jewish population is in the U.S. What is it? 1.5%, 2%? And
well, not only that, but you're hit on something else, and it's very important. Yeah.
One other thing, I'll give it to you, but they're also focused in like 4 or 5 major cities. And then all the rest are like 1 or 2, you know, in a town here or there.
Yeah, they're focused in California, New York, D.C.
and Miami.
Right. Yeah. I mean, all this...
Florida, we'll say.
The censorship they're trying to put on this guy, like Spotify, the lobby trying to cancel him, it's only going to give him more publicity. It's an opportunity for people to learn more also from him.
Correct. And just real quick, another song that I just remembered that I keep forgetting, check out the song Terrorist by him, because that tells you in a nutshell, he kind of explains like the dominators of what's going on, who actually is the actual terrorist by the book definition of what the word means. And his message is, guess what? Peace and love.
Nice.
Like he hits it all home.
Well, I think why this comes now is that the narrative of the Israeli terrorist state being a democracy, the only democracy in the Middle East, is crumbling, right? Because the Israeli terrorist state has existed since its inception, right? It's a state founded on ethnically cleansing people from their homes to create an ethno-nationalist Ashkenazi state, right? Like, because the Sephardic, the Ethiopian, and what's the other?
Mizrahi.
The Mizrahi. they're not afforded the same privileges as the Ashkenazi, right?
Or when you say Ethiopian, you could say Falasha too.
I don't know the.
I know.
I tried to stay away from it. I'm a fucking bearded white guy with a bald head, so I try to not be too over obsessive about Jewish things. Just because, and I could be Jewish. Like me and Jack have had this conversation about like my family history. Like we don't know anything, and it kind of.
And you're not gonna do like the 23andMe or like Ancestry.com or
No.
I just prefer.
Unless, of course, it gets me a
Times
free ticket to
57.
fucking birthright trip to fucking Israel, so I can fucking go get a free spot of land on somebody's fucking blood and tears. But like, I mean, it is a European terrorist state sitting in the heart of the Levant, and that narrative has survived. Of the poor Jews were so victimized that they can never be the victimizer because they're the eternal victim, and they have the right to do whatever the fuck they feel like, whenever the fuck they feel like, because they're the poor victim that's always going to be the victim because they're the eternal victim, and therefore they're always
like
defending.
Hannah Arendt said.
Right, it's just like Hannah Arendt said, right?
Yeah, she literally Hannah Arendt. The people why I didn't know as much about her in history is because she's controversial. Because during the Eichmann trials, she was purposely saying you guys are exploiting what did happen for political means, and she was very pissed off at the state of Israel for that.
Yeah. So
But-
with the introduction of the digital age, right? Everyone's a fucking journalist. And you can't just fucking pop journalists in the fucking head accidentally because they're combatants or whatever the fuck in Israel like you used to be, or well, in occupied Palestine. We should probably refrain from calling it Israel because that's an illegitimate fucking name.
I prefer to call it Land of Canaan.
Land of Canaan, whatever you want to call it, like the Levant, let's just say, because it's not just
there you go.
It's not just fucking territorially Palestine either. They're moving east and north, just like everyone said they would for Greater Israel. But especially recently with Sheikh Jarrah, the brutal ethnic cleansing that's going on in that neighborhood, the theft of the Golan Heights, and the continuing genocide in Lebanon, it's really hard to continue to hold on to I'm a victim when you are the genociding people. And
it's the sad tragedy of this completely flying in the face of what the alleged Jewish identity that I was sold was, and that was that, you know, playing into the fear of because there is legitimately people that, like, I grew up, I dealt with that kind of shit. Like I didn't deal with it with the level of like a lot of my other friends, but to deal with like death threats getting called into your house and shit like that, just because of shit you can't change. Changes how you view life. But if you don't channel that into understanding that it's not an identity that you need to attach with, but all of humanity, then the picture becomes clear.
Yeah, and I think has to be like, I think the reason why it's low key is because he speaks in the language of the otherwise politically uneducated, right? He's a music person, right? Yeah. Like, and he does very, very good hip hop. And any introduction of real hip hop, what hip hop is supposed to be, a revolutionary fucking form of getting you out of the superficial and into your heart and into your spirit, right? Like, that cannot be allowed, right? We need hip hop artists to be talking about bitches and cocaine and Xanax and fucking pussy and fucking what.
But
and remember,
when you bring that up, I mean, since you opened up that Pandora's box here, who were controlling these record labels? Who were pushing this on the artists?
The ones that were pushing gangster rap and representing NWA were Ashkenazi Jews. But it happened right around the time when conscious rap was becoming more popular. Right? We had Rakim, we had Common, we had Nas, all these conscious rappers. And then they started...
Fuck the world.
They began to implement more gangster rap and pushing that more in the media.
Yeah.
This,
KRS-One, don't forget about him.
Yep, KRS-One. But
So
like,
many to
just
list.
to give an
Yeah.
example of like, to give an example of like Lowkey. So in the song "Terrorist," he goes, "So we must ask ourselves, what is the dictionary definition of terrorism? The systematic use of terror, especially as means of coercion. But what is terror? According to the dictionary I hold in my hand, terror is violent or destructive acts such as bombing committed by groups in order to intimidate population or government into granting their demands. So what is a terrorist?" And then what he goes into was essentially, uh, tell me who the bigger threat to human society, or tell me what's the bigger threat to society: BAE systems or homemade IEDs, remote controlled drones killing off human lives. And then he says, talks about the towers falling, but he talks about, it seems nuts. How could there be such agony when more Israelis die from peanut allergies? It's like the definition didn't exist. I guess it's all dependent on who your nemesis is. Irrelevant how eloquent the Reddit peddler is. They're telling fibs. Now tell us who the real terrorist is. Jesus.
That is fire right there. So much truth. And it's like what we were just talking about here earlier, right? When we were talking about autoimmune diseases, how they're killing us. He's rapping like an independent media journalist.
Yeah. That's very much his style too, because he will call out and point out to and I believe Shadow, in that speech that we watched, he makes a great point, and that's that we don't hear about the Arab scholars that have contributed to our society, just like all other groups. It's a very
Zero.
like people talk zero, and so
The
he just
number
starts listing
zero.
them all up. Yeah,
That was invented by the Arabic scholars. There was no zero before the Arabic number system, which is the one that we fucking use.
Yeah.
I mean, and as a
And they also invented algebra, right?
right. And as a tradesman, I am a total fucking simp for really good craftsmanship and workmanship. Like, I dig it. Like, it's a thing of art for me, right? The mosques, man. Holy shit. How the fuck did you build something that long ago that is still standing and is that perfectly meticulous, beautiful?
with
Like,
attention to directional details of east to west and everything,
Well,
and
you
all the
ought to,
columns.
well, and then if you look also into like just like for instance, let's just go into like the different sphinxes and the pyramids and the alignments which they have and how they tie in with directional with the moon and sun and things like that. How
Yeah.
for instance, the ones specifically in and the ones in South America are even more high tech. The way they would use the sun to be able to refract the sun through. By the way, they built it so the sun will refract in and be able to reflect light all the way through without needing an actual power source, but the
I was,
actual sun itself. And then the
I was very
thermodynamics they use to keep them heated and cooled for perfect temperature control.
dude, the Yemenis Adobe skyscrapers are thousands of years old. Nobody actually knows how old they are, but they're still fucking
Or
standing.
not technically skyscraper, ziggurats.
Ziggurats. Yeah. So, but I mean, Arab culture is one of the most beautiful in the world. Like, I actually listen to the fucking Quran being recited in the surahs, right? When I need to chill the fuck out because the music is so beautiful. Like, the language is beautiful. Everything about that culture to me is fucking beautiful. But the whole rest of the world has been told this is a terrorist just because of the and let's not fucking mince words here. The Israeli terrorist forces, not the Israeli defense forces, the Israeli terrorist forces,
Or Israeli offensive force.
yeah, they basically the same reaction to hearing Arabic is the same that you hear from Ukrainian forces when they hear the
Russian.
Russian being spoke. Right? They're extremely fucking hateful to these people because they see them as the Untermenschen, the subhuman.
And that
And it
is
very
the
much is
role
that.
of the fourth estate, is to manufacture the way people think. And
Right.
going back to what we were talking about with hip hop, Chris Lawson in there, and then people are saying that, gangster rap ruined hip hop. I mean, there it can be used as art. Like it's reflecting how people were living at that time, what they do, and all that. Like, but the hyper focus on that, the hyper focus and the push by the Fourth Estate of that subgenre within hip hop, that's what ruined it. Mm-hmm. And the suppression of the more intelligent, the higher conscious hip hop, that also helped ruin hip hop.
The way it was explained to me by a fellow artist when he was a hip hop DJ and one of our other friends was an MC, and he explained to me that the glorification aspect was a linchpin in undermining all of these like different oppressed peoples, because the second you get people glorifying killing each other, you've now and there's a great video of someone explaining this where it says that you're now doing the job for the other side now, and it really clicked in my head why I'd never really got into like a lot of like yeah, I was into Tupac, I was into things like that, but that's because like you would hear Tupac speak and like Jesus, like oh man.
And for how many people their gateway to hip hop was gangster rap, because that's what was constantly being pushed, that's what was popular. The media manufactured people to believe that that is what you're supposed to like. That's what is like when you think of hip hop, you think about gangster rap. That's thanks to the media, their push. You didn't know conscious rap existed if you never heard hip hop before.